Good evening. I'm Michael McCrite, and we're going to talk about weight tonight. Do we have anybody here that's may have carry an extra 15 pounds? 20? Well, just I want you to set that in your lap and just recognize that's what you're carrying around on a daily basis continually. Do we have anybody here that's got 30 pounds? Anybody? That's the 30 pounder. And most people can't imagine that they're carrying that much around. They just don't see it. They don't feel it. It's a natural thing for them to do. So come pick one of these up. I won't ask that you put that on and hold it on your lap. But just feel how much that is. Now you're carrying that up and down stairs all the time. So what's that? And that's only 30 pounds. But yeah, everybody come up and lift these before they leave, just to realize what it is that you have with you. I'd like to thank Carol Ann and Stephen for allowing me to be here this evening. It's a privilege and an honor, and I want to thank everybody for showing up also.
She just said she just needs to get taller.
For me, that's not too funny, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, okay? Weight matters because when we carry extra weight, we're changing our posture, we're changing the physical characteristics of the body, and if we wait too long, sometimes we can get to the point to where there's no recovery. If you change the posture enough and walk with the joints out of whack, sometimes you'll wear out the cartilage, tear up the ligaments, and if you get down to bone on bone, there's no recovery. So sometimes it's the weight is what counts. I do free health coaching. My business is Together I Can. You'll see that on all the on the card anyway. And the pad is from my massage practice. I've been doing massage for 25 years, and at 75, I'm probably going to have to stop doing that here one of these days, so I'm moving into the health coaching arena. I've been involved with health coaching, or actually I've been involved with nutrition since 1972 when I joined Shackley. When I was at the chiropractor's office in 1992, I handled all the nutritional counseling that came through that chiropractor's office. And so I've been involved in it for quite some time. I am involved with Optavia, and let me see if we can get some slides going. Optavia is optimal, opta meaning optimal, and via meaning the path. And it's all about lifelong transformation. I don't care what age you are or what's going on in your life, life can always get better. And I say it gets better one health habit at a time. So we'll go through some of those tonight as we go through and talk about those. Now there I was at 71, and you'll notice I've got it going. We were talking about that on the way up in the elevator. I weighed 179 pounds, and my wife kept looking at me and saying, "Honey, you got to get rid of that beer belly." And I says, "Honey, I don't drink beer, so it can't be a beer belly." But anyway, I had it, and that picture that took, if you'll notice there's some yellow spots on here. And Kimberly was doing a posture analysis on me. So those yellow spots were to show the alignment of the body. And, of course, after I saw the picture, I said, whoops, I don't think I like that. So it was an eye-opener, and I started cutting back on chocolate, and I ate out two mornings a week. And, of course, they were breakfast, and I'd have the pancakes and the eggs and the bacon and the, everything I could get. And it just kept creeping up. And so I knocked all that stuff off, and I lost about 10 pounds in about 9 months. And just so you know, Dr. Chan and I are in the same group together, a networking group. And he asked me one night, he says, I'd like for you to come to a meeting. And trusting Dr. Chan, I said, okay. I went to the meeting. And it was held at a restaurant, and I walked in, and they showed this video about this Take Shape for Life or Optavia stuff, and they handed me one of those cards. So has everybody got a card and looked at that? Because what this is this will tell you what your BMI is, and BMI is just a number, so don't worry about it. But it's if you go down the left-hand side, it's got your height, and if you go across, it's got your weight. And I looked at that card, and I says, okay, I'm 5 foot 8.5, and I weigh 169 pounds, and I went over and says, I'm right at the 25 mark. I'm in the green. I'm good. And so I was questioning in my mind, Dr. Chan, what did you invite me here for? And I didn't know. I was okay. And on the way out, he handed me this book, and Discover Your Optimal Health by Dr. Anderson. And so I read through the book, and I realized why he had invited me, because what I was doing back in 1972 or 1992 on the nutritional coaching, I would do computerized studies with people, 7-day diets, and all this stuff, and I could tell people what to do and what was correct, and I could never get them to do it. And as I read through this book, all of a sudden the answer was there, because they provide a meal replacement program, which in the beginning can help somebody establish a new way of life and establish transformational healing. So I developed a fondness for Dr. A, and what he said we thought quite alike. So, and while I was at the chiropractor's office, I was the first holistic health practitioner to be honored enough to process Standard Process, which is a line of products that is natural foods, and they process them as vitamins. And I was the first holistic health practitioner that they allowed to do that. You had to be a health professional in order to do that. So it normally was a chiropractor or some medical doctor that did that. But I'd like to, going backwards. I'd like to just establish something for a bit, and this is about changing beliefs. And weight is about changing beliefs. If we always continue to believe the same things and do the same things, we're going to get the same results. So back in the early 1500s, Rene Descartes developed the idea that we were like a watch. So we were mechanical beings. We were put together and could just operate just like a watch. And so many people today, and many in the medical establishment, still consider that, because Newton was the one that really pushed the mechanized body function. And in the medical community today, they still think of that. And they're still doing it. They can take out a heart and put in a new heart. They can put in a hip replacement. They can replace the knee. So they're still treating disease as if it's a mechanized process. But what I'd like to move to is one where you're no longer thinking about the body as a machine, but you're thinking about the body as a chemical factory and an electrical power plant. So everything that you put in your body gets processed through, broken down, and turns into a chemical. And then those chemicals get dispersed throughout the body through the bloodstream. And not only are we putting in good stuff, but we're also putting in bad stuff. So toxins get in there. You can get a shot, have that mercury. We talked about that just a little bit earlier. So we don't wear out. If you think about it from a not a mechanized standpoint, but a chemical factory standpoint, we don't wear out, we mutate. Does that make sense? So how do we alter the chemical factory? Medications. They do it. Doctors do it all the time. Statins will change you. Inhalers will change the way you do. Blood pressure medications, blood thinners. And the funny thing about it is none of these cure diseases. They're there to mask over the symptoms. If you take statins to control your cholesterol, you're still going to have high cholesterol, except that the statins are monitoring it for you. You're not being able to monitor it yourself. OTCs, all herbs go in and affect the body chemically. Essential oils will go in. You can rub them. If you took a piece of garlic and put it, cut it up in half and put it inside your shoe on your bare foot and walked around with it, in about 20 minutes you would taste it. Okay? Because the soles of the feet have big pores. And as you walked on that garlic, you would crush it. It would get in through the pores into your bloodstream and circulate through your body. And you'll be tasting it in about 20 minutes. So altering the chemical factory, let's go back to this. We can do it sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. But we can do it from a naturalistic standpoint. And one way to do that is through the breath. Not too many people think about it, but what causes you to take a breath? Your CO2 is your cells, every cell in your body is exploding, right? And causing energy to happen. When it explodes, it gives off CO2. The CO2 gets in the bloodstream, delivers it to the lungs, and the lungs exchange it for oxygen, right? So someplace up here, there's a guy in the room up there, in the control room, and he says, you've got too much carbon dioxide. He flips the switch, and you go, and take a breath so you can get some oxygen in. And then that oxygen goes out to all the cells. And so you sit there, and you have a set point of CO2, carbon dioxide, and a set point of oxygen. Can that be changed? Absolutely. Most people have a tendency to short breathe. And they're going to have a very high CO2 rate. If you take somebody up into altitude, what happens? Many people get altitude sickness, and that causes headaches. Why is that? Lack of oxygen. So their CO2 is way up. They've experimented with SEAL team and scuba divers. And many of them, when they're down diving, some of them get headaches more often than others. And what they found is those that had headaches, when they evaluated their blood, found that the blood had more CO2 in it than others did. So you can change. In fact is, by breathing out, you're going to be breathing out carbolic acid. If you're breathing out acid, what happens to the body? It alkalizes. So you can change the entire structure of the body just through the breath. You can also do it every time you eat a bite of food. Some foods are alkaline. Some foods will create an acidic. Meats, for instance, will create an acidic process in the body, and all your cells start become acidic. If they're acidic, they can't have oxygen. If they can't have oxygen, cancer can develop. Cancer cannot live in an alkaline oxygen state. So it's very important. The breathing is important. Eating of foods is important. Sleep is required to balance out our hormonal system. Once again, a whole chemical process is happening while you're sleeping. Meditation can decrease the cortisol. Every time we get stressed, cortisol is created, and cortisol is a stress hormone, gets in the bloodstream, goes to every cell. It tells the lungs to breathe, shorten up their breath, get ready for action. Tells the heart to beat faster. It tells the blood to move away from the extremities into the internal portion, so when that saber-toothed tiger scratches us, we don't bleed to death. So there's all sorts of chemical responses going on every time you get nervous, every time you get worried, every time you panic. Because cortisol is a natural, normal chemical that the body creates. So meditation is a way to lower that. Activity increases the cardiovascular system and keeps you tuned up. Hydration. You need hydration, and everybody should be trying to drink at least 8 ounces or 8-ounce glasses of water a day. You keep the cells plumped, I should say, and also it keeps the blood much thinner, so you're better off that way. Now, when we talk about foods as medicines, everybody knows that lack of some vitamins create beriberi. Lack of some vitamins create scurvy. So there's all sorts of disease related to food deficiencies or vitamin deficiencies. But arthritis is a great example. You can either feed arthritis or you can starve it. Okay? And from my standpoint, arthritis is a temporary condition. You go to a doctor and you say, this joint here hurts. And the doctor, first thing out of the doctor's mouth is, you got arthritis. Arth is joint, itis is inflammation. Okay? That's as simple as it gets. So if the arth and the itis separate and you get rid of the inflammation and you no longer have that in the joint, the pain goes away, your arthritis has gone away. Now you can feed it and make it worse with sugars, red meat, cheese. They'll all feed arthritis. Or if you take some garlic and make sure you have that every day, tart cherries, fatty fish, you'll starve the arthritis in your body and head it in the other direction. So foods are medicines. What's that?
Yeah, tell me, what's the best fatty fish? Never heard of fatty fish.
Yeah. Salmon, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ongoing mutations. Everybody in here has a cancer cell running through their body, or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20. Every one of us has cancer in our body. And as long as our immune systems stay efficient, as long as we keep the cells alkaline, as long as we stay oxygenated, nothing happens. They're just rogue cells. However, if we start to mutate a little bit, the cells can start clustering and start multiplying, and in some cases turn into tumors. Now, if the tumor expands too far or the immune system breaks down, they will start migrating into the lymph nodes. It can metastasize on into the organs, and that's stage 4. Little story, my wife, many years ago, we was going down to the football game and happened to be riding in a bus. And on the way back from the football game, a nurse just happened, to be sitting behind us. And she just happened to look over the seat. And my wife just happened to be wearing a V-neck blouse. And she leaned forward just as the nurse looked over her shoulder and says, "You ought to have that mole checked." And my wife went in to the doctor, and sure enough, he cut it out, sent it in, and it was malignant, melanoma. And melanoma is one of the most deadly cancers that there is. And so when he got the results back, he called us up and he told us to come back in, and he started apologizing when we went in. Because if melanoma gets into your body thicker than the size of a quarter, the thickness of a quarter, it typically metastasizes immediately into the organs. And he thought that it had gotten that deep. And so he started apologizing, and he says, I need to make another cut. And so we went in the room, and he cut about that deep. I've never seen that happen before, but it was quite an experience watching him go in and take the flesh out again and then stitch it back up. And he sent out the sample, and it turned out that he had gotten it all the first time. So she wouldn't be here today. Now, the funny thing, and it's really not funny, is she had no concept that was growing in her body. None whatsoever. So we have mutations going on in our systems all the time, and we don't pay attention to any of the indicators. You know, and many times there are no indicators. So we have to have somebody else notify us that something's going on. I don't call all those things that happened with my wife coincidences. I call them God incidences. You know, there was something else going on at that point in her life.
What do you mean by the mutation of the body?
Well,
Everything's fine until your body mutates? What does that mean?
well, if you start moving your body out of balance, okay, let's say that you short breathe all the time. What's going to happen? Your CO2 level is going to build up, right? The cells are going to become acidic. Aren't you mutating? Aren't you changing the chemical structure of the body at that point? You are. You are. If you only drink 4 glasses of water a day and you aren't keeping the cells plump, are you causing a mutation to take place? Anytime you put something in the body, the stomach has to break it down into chemicals, and we'll get into some things in a little bit. But sugars, as far as I'm concerned, sugar is a poison. Okay? Now, I've got people coming to me all the time saying, but I don't eat sugar. And I say, well, do you eat fruit? Yeah. Well, you're eating sugar. Do you eat vegetables? Yeah. Then you're eating sugar. Anything, there's 3 groups of foods. There's fats, there's carbohydrates, and there's protein. Anything that is not a protein or a fat is a carbohydrate, and any carbohydrate is a sugar, with one exception, and that is fiber. Fiber is considered a carbohydrate, but it has no caloric, it's 0 calories. It has no food value to it. But everything else is sugar. Simple sugars, such as table sugar, goes immediately from the stomach in through the walls of the stomach into the bloodstream. When it hits the bloodstream, I'll give you a chart a little bit later, it spikes the blood. The minute it spikes the blood, the pancreas says, there's a little control man in the brain says, hey, I need some insulin. So now we shoot some insulin out of the pancreas into the bloodstream to bring that down. The insulin's supposed to go out and talk to all the cells and have the portals open up so that the sugar can be absorbed by the cells, and it lowers the blood sugar. Gets too low, we've got another mechanism that shoots out glucagon, and glucagon goes to the liver and says, I need some more blood sugar. So it's this vicious cycle. And you're modifying that by what you eat, by what you drink, by how you breathe, gas fumes, pesticides, anything that goes on in your life, you can change what's going on in your system. It just has to happen. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Okay, we talked about the number 2 killer here. But there's the other mutations going on. I talked about that cycle of the insulin and blood sugar. If it goes on for too long of a period of time, pretty soon the insulin will go out and it'll run past the cell and it'll say, open up that portal. I got some sugar for you. And the cell says, Forget it, buddy. Ain't doing it. That's called insulin resistance. Do we know that it's going on? Absolutely not. Till we go to a doctor and he says, he takes all these blood tests and he says, hey, you got some stuff going on here. That's a mutation. We're changing the physical inner structure of the body. It's a chemical factory. And if we look at it as a chemical factory, we can start to say we're affecting it with everything we do. Now, typically, if we go long enough, insulin resistance turns into type 2 diabetes. And most people say, no big deal. I can go to the doctor and he can give me a medication and control my diabetes. And yeah, for a while, until it goes a little stray and then you go blind. Or it goes a little stray and you have to have nerve damage and you have to have a foot or an arm amputated. You know, type 2 diabetes is so serious and people don't recognize it. They just don't. They have this idea that if I get it, I'll take a medication, I'll be okay. All sorts of autoimmune diseases. Now, people, I don't know if you know of anybody that has chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia. The body at some point in time has gotten out of balance, and because it's gotten out of balance, it wants to respond back. And all of those issues can be from an out of balance situation, from a mutation. Allergies and sensitiveness. Do you have to have allergies? I don't believe you do. I believe that there's something that has gotten out of balance, and we become hypersensitive to it, and therefore we respond to it. Same thing with the leaky gut syndrome. What we put into our stomachs all the time can actually affect the stomach so that we can start to have food or chemicals going through the walls of the stomach directly into the bloodstream. Scary stuff. At what point do you make the decision that you need to do something? You know, that's the funny part. My business name is Together I Can, and the philosophy says that we don't do anything in this world alone. And if you want to look at it, you can say together, parentheses, with God, I can. Or together with my dentist, I can. Two people just went to the dentist today. And he's a dentist right back there. So, you know, there's always combinations of doing things. And if we work synergistically, working together, we can create optimal health. But you've got to be able to listen to people and start to accept new ideas and new concepts and new beliefs in order to do that. If you continue to think the same things over and over and over again, you're going to continue to get the same results you've always gotten. It just works that way. The height of insanity, they say, is doing the same things over and over and over and over, and that's not insanity. Insanity is believing that by doing those over and over and over things, something will change. It don't change because we keep doing the same stuff. So, I got a little story about the Together I Can. So I get the idea sometimes that people think that it's a selfish thing to do, you know. And typically that I is a small I. I don't know why I got a large I up there. But when I was I was in the Navy for a few years, 7 years, and then I went out and joined the corporate world, and I worked my way through the corporate world. And I worked my way up to a VP position, and we'd go into the boardroom, and everybody would sit around, and we'd have the president come in, and they'd say, okay, here's what we need done. And everybody'd shake their head, and yeah, we're going to do it. And we'd walk out of there, and the slackers would go out and play golf, or go to lunch, or do whatever they was going to do, and the workers would put their nose to the grindstone and just go do stuff. And we'd get together 6 weeks from then on, and everybody'd walk into the boardroom and say, look what we done. And it used to just, upset me. Because I was one of those who put the nose to the grindstone and expected everybody to follow along, and it didn't happen, you know. So we got the slackers and we've got So I decided one day that with others, I can accomplish much. But I never say, when I talk about me and God, I never say we're going to do this. With His help, I can. So that's where the I comes from. And I typically try to bring it down to a small I, because the ego is what tries to run our lives. The ego tells us what we want. We need to be rich. We need to be skinny. We need to be this. We need to be that. And that's the ego talking. And if we can put that ego to bed and turn our lives and our wills over to the care, then all of a sudden it becomes a small I. We become humble, and things happen in our lives that we can never expect any other way. So anyway, that's the Together I Can philosophy. There is a health trilogy that I think works in the body. I believe that spirit guides the mind, controls the body, and the body affects spirit. So anything that we do to throw that out of balance, if we spend too much time reading the how-to books, we throw ourselves out of kilter. If we spend too much time in the gym, we throw the body out of kilter. I don't mean to pick on anybody here, but some people I know personally. And I don't know if you can get over spiritual, but if you spend all your time doing nothing but spiritual work, you're probably going to reduce the effects on the mind and the body. So the mind is not only the conscious mind, but it's also the subconscious mind. And here's where most people get confused. And that is, they think that everything, that they're in control of everything, and everything goes through the conscious, and it doesn't. The fact that when you take some sugar into your body and it goes straight through the stomach wall into the bloodstream, you don't think anything about that consciously. But your subconscious is controlling the insulin that gets released. So the subconscious is always working. In fact, as the subconscious works at night, it's the one that watches your dreams, right? We don't consciously watch our dreams. We wake up in the morning and the observer, the subconscious that is watched all night, lets you know that, hey, you had a dream, and if you write it down fast enough, you might remember it for that long. But, so you got an observer at night. The same thing, the subconscious keeps you from falling out of bed every night. The subconscious does all sorts of things for us, and it can do bad things for us also. Because if we've had any trauma in our lives, and that trauma is buried in that subconscious, and we somehow observe a trigger and don't even know we're observing it, that trigger can create the response. And with that response, it can create the cortisol response. And with the cortisol response, we go through a physical process. So keeping things in balance, body, mind, and spirit, is a good thing. Now, why am I've lost the last half of my program. Don't know why. But fat is beautiful. That there is a representative of a pound of fat. And a lot of people have it because they want somebody to look at it and say, ooh, I don't like that. I have it because that pound of fat is representative of 3,500 calories. Okay? That is 16 and a half Hershey bars. Right there. That's 3.5 bloomin' onions. Okay? So, I just want everybody to know, fat is beautiful. I was honored and able to take a class where I was with 20 other individuals, and we dissected a form. And we did it differently than any other operation typically handles that. And that is, we took the skin off first, then we took the adipose layer off, then we took the deep fascia down into the muscles and into the organs. And I was honored to be able to do that. And when we took the skin off, the professor had us hold it up and took a bright light, and that light radiated right through that skin. And then we took the next layer off, which is the adipose, or the fat layer, and it also is just a blanket around the body. And he put the adipose up against the skin and put the backlight behind it, and the light shone right through the skin and right through the adipose layer. So when you walk out into the sunlight, that sun is going through you just like it goes through a plant. Yes, really.
I would have thought the big fat adipose would have blanketed it out.
Nope.
Blanketed it out.
Nope. It goes right through. And of course, sunlight is also the best place to get vitamin D for the body. But if you're 10 pounds overweight, you got 35,000 stored calories. Calories that could be used for energy. And yet what are you doing? You're using energy to pack them around. Now, the other thing that most people don't realize is when you exercise, to run a mile in about 12 minutes, who knows how many calories you burn? Anybody? About 100. 100. So if you're running a marathon, which is 26.2 miles, what are you burning up? 2,800 calories? A marathon will burn about 2,800 calories. It won't burn as much as a pound of fat. So anybody that thinks that they're going to overcome or lose weight via exercise needs to change a belief. Okay? If you want to lose weight, it's all about eating. It's all about eating. Nothing else. There's a lot of health habits that you can use. One is portion control. Okay? This is what normally everybody has at their house. It's a 12-inch plate, right? I'd advise that everybody take those out. If you need to keep them, buy a china cabinet that's got a lock on it, okay? Go lock them in the china cabinet so you can't have them anymore. And then, here's a 9-inch plate. Pass it around. Portion control. Oh, we just turned our audio. Battery came out.
Houston, we have a problem.
Are we back online, Tom? Yep. Okay. Greens, about the size of a small pocketbook. Greens. Lean protein, meat, about the size of a deck of playing cards. Oh my gosh. Starch, about the size of a. The other thing that I suggest is, and this used to be my bowl here. That was my soup bowl. And that's what I looked like. Today, this is my soup bowl. So portion control. And what you find is that you're satisfied. Now, I try to eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. And the reason I try to do that is the upper, we've already talked about this chart here. The upper chart is a normal day that people have, and the way their blood sugar and insulin
So I heard that the stomach can shrink. So does it shrink?
it will shrink if you eat less. Yes, absolutely.
How long does it take to shrink?
Well,
Instantly. 1 or 2 days. 3 hours.
if it depends upon what you're doing. I use a meal replacement program in the very beginning, and the meal replacement meals have 16 grams of carbohydrates. They've got 14 grams of protein. They've got almost zero fat in them, and they've got 4 grams of fiber and 20% of your vitamins and minerals. And you eat every 2.5 hours, you're taking in 5 of those a day, and then you have one of those lean and green meals that's on that portion control plate. And with that, you go down to the bottom of that chart. All of a sudden, you're no longer spiking your blood sugar levels. You're actually running them down at a baseline, and by doing so, you enter a fat-burning zone. And it takes about 4 days to get into that fat-burning zone. One Hershey bar will take you out of that fat-burning zone, and it takes you 4 more days to get into it. So cheating is not a good thing to do in the beginning of a program where you really want to lose some weight. Okay, the idea is to get into a fat-burning zone and stay there for the length of time that you want to. Drop out of it, and if you have I suggest having a coach, because a coach can be with you while you're doing that. They can take you through a transition period. You can stop at any time you want, at any weight you want, and go through a transition period and go to a maintenance period. And then someplace down the line, if you want to lose some more weight, you take off again and do the program again. But once again, we can get back to foods as medicines, or foods as how they affect us. And how much protein we get, how much carbohydrates we get, and how much fat we get all makes a difference. And how we blend it together makes a difference. I have one person that came into me. She lost 65 pounds. She's been on the program almost 2 years now, and about 4 months ago she walked in and she says, "I'm hungry." And I says, "Well, what's changed?" "Nothing." I says, "Well, something had to change." "Nope, I'm eating balanced just the way you taught me." I said, "Okay, tell me what you're eating." "Well, I'm having two boiled eggs for breakfast." I says, "Where's your carbohydrates?" "Well, I have those 2.5 hours later. And then I have some more protein, and then I have carbohydrates later." I says, "Well, that's why you're hungry. You're not getting any carbs when you..." So you have to balance the carbohydrates and the proteins at the same time. If you don't, it doesn't. The chemical factory recognizes that and says, "Hey, I don't like this." So there's some keys that need to happen while you're doing this, and that's why Together I Can works, because trying to do it on your own gets a little bit discombobulated. Make sense? Now, one of the things that we can do is this, like I said, is beautiful. It really is. The problem when we have a little bit too much of it is, number one, it's a waste of energy. Number two, it's the best storage factory or garbage dump, best storage place for toxins. And of course, as you start losing weight, you start mobilizing some of those toxins. But you also, every time you go out in the sun, you're mobilizing toxins, because that sun's going right through the skin and the adipose. So once again, we're talking about the body as a chemical factory and what's going on inside of the body. And the more you understand that, the more changes you can make in your life. I believe, go ahead, yeah.
So if you live in a state that doesn't have very much sun, you know, like for instance, I taught PE, so I was in the sun 8 hours a day for 38 years, you know, except weekends, and then I was probably in the sun So you have to double up, triple up on the vitamin D? I mean, is that how you compensate for that?
That's
Or
one
less
that
vitamin D?
that's one of the ways.
And what's another way?
You can always get artificial sun. You know what?
Not through the lights?
Yeah, through lights there's more depression in the state of Washington than there is in the state of California. So lack of sunlight also leads to a mental complication and depression. So. Okay, we talked about fitness and not using fitness as a weight loss program, that eating does it. I believe that health in and of itself, and if we're striving for optimal health, that it involves the spiritual, mental, and physical aspects. And health is all about empowerment. It's about having energy to do the things you want to do. It's about having the vitality and the disposition to be able to smile when you want to smile, the joy and the peace, serenity. It's about feeling good, both physically and mentally. And it's not about having to suffer the side effects of taking medications. Every medication you take is going to have a side effect. It's going to mutate the system at some point, some way, somehow. And it's nice to only visit the doctor once a year. So the CDC Center for Cancer Control says that about 40% of cancer cases in the U.S. are caused by obesity. 40%. That's that one right there. If you're 30 pounds or more overweight, you've just increased your chances of getting cancer by 30%. Scary stuff, huh? And yet we seem to not understand it and ignore it as individuals. Your BMI on that card is nothing more than just a number, but it does define risk. And I will say that when I walked out of that meeting, I knew I was 5'8", 5'8.5", and I was 165 pounds, and I had a BMI of 25. And I got back to the office, and Kimberly put a stick on my top of my head, and we put a tape measure on it, and I'd shrunk. I was only 5'7.5". I looked at the chart, and I jumped up to 26 or 27. Oh, my God. So now I had to get involved, and I've been able to lose another 10 pounds since then. But yeah, the other thing is and if you talk to Dr. Chan, he'll I mean, I've heard him say enough times that the teeth and the inflammation of the gums and that will create heart disease. You know, it just does. Well, there's a study out that Dr. Samuel Klein did. He's a Dartmouth professor of medicine and nutritional scientist at Washington University. And that study concluded that fat in the belly will promote systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation is consistent and ongoing inflammation. So not only do you get it out of the gums, you also can get it by being overweight. Another mutation. If you wait long enough, it's going to have an effect. So you can play the waiting game. You can procrastinate. Oh, I didn't bring my round to it. I was going to bring a round to it for somebody here. A round to it. I've got some over at the office. They're a wooden thing that has round to it on it. So people that say, I'll do that as soon as I get around to it, I have them. But yep. So I will have everybody try and exercise. Put your right hand on your knee. Okay. Now I'm going to count to 3, and when I count to 3, I want everybody to try to lift their hand off their knee. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. Try and lift it off. How come everybody got their hand on? No, you didn't. You got it right. You're just still trying, aren't you? Oh. If you do nothing but try, and I'm talking about intentions. Oh, I'm going to do this good thing. I'm going to try. And try and try and try and try, and that hand will never come off your knee. It's only when you take action and say, I'm going to, and you lift it off. So let go of the trying, let go of the good intentions, and start taking action on what you believe you should be doing. One of the traps that we have is that we don't recognize small changes that are taking place. We don't notice trends. When somebody's coming to me for weight loss, I have them on a scale daily. I want to know if they're changing 0.2 of a pound and which way that 0.2 of a pound is going. Because we can gain 0.2 today and not notice it. We can gain 0.3 tomorrow and never know it. And 0.5 the next day and never know it. And then all of a sudden, we turn out with that nice belly. And then, sometimes it's too late. So yeah, it's the trap is incrementalism. Just a little shift at a time, and it shifts so small that we don't even know what's happening. I call those slight errors in judgment. And another handout. This is called the slight edge principle. And this uses incrementalism. Everybody get one? So if you look down from the top, it says that small changes practiced faithfully over a prolonged period of time will result in profound changes in your life. And if you look down at the graph, that graph has a straight line, and above the line is simple disciplines, and below the line is slight errors in judgment. And if you look at the top of the line and the bottom of the line, you'll notice that those two lines run right parallel with each other for quite some time. In other words, you don't notice a change, and yet it's happening within your body. You can either mutate to a bad characteristic or you can mutate to a good characteristic. So if you practice simple disciplines more often than you practice slight errors in judgment, guess which direction you're going to end? You're going to end up with well-being. If you practice slight errors in judgment, you're going to head down towards the disease area. Simple enough, right? Small little changes practiced over a long period of time. Now, one of the things that I kind of bugs me is I go to some seminars and all they talk about is diet. And then I'll go to other seminars and they'll talk about supplements and what vitamins and minerals and all that stuff you should take. And then I go to other ones and they talk about, oh, we should drink this certain water. You know, if it's not alkaline water, it's not, you can, you know, or it shouldn't have this chemical or that chemical or whatever in it. And then nobody ever goes to a seminar and talks about the breath. But we can go to all sorts of seminars and talk about activity, right? You need exercise, you need movement, you got to get out there and Zumba. Posture is always an important thing, but I can go to seminars on posture. I've taken courses with Egoscue, who has been doing posture analysis for over 40 years. So I'm a posture analysis specialist, so is Kimberly. And we can evaluate posture and tell you what's going on in your body and suggest some exercises that may correct that. Education, what are you reading? So I guess what I'm trying to get to is it's not just one thing, is it? It takes everything on that list: diet, supplementation, water, breath, activity, posture, gaining knowledge, plenty of rest and sleep, meditation. Very few people will take the time to meditate and learn how to meditate. And my story goes that I went to massage school And the professor, when we came in, says, go sit in the corner and meditate. And I says, I don't want to. I want you to teach me how to do massage. I'm here. I paid good money for you to teach me. He says, I'm teaching you. Go meditate. 9 months, I went to my corner. Nothing happened. Stupid stuff. You know? And then one day, I came back from a place I'd never been before. I came back from a place where my mind had went totally silent. I didn't have a thought. And I knew that when I came back from that, and I says, oh my God, how do I get back there again? And it took me another 3 months to find that spout again. But I've been doing that for about 26 years now, and I can walk into my sauna in the morning and just go right down into a meditative state. 4 breaths, 5 breaths, and I'm there. And I can shut everything off. So, but it's just like activity. It takes practice in order to get there. So prayer, another powerful, powerful thing. Talking to God. Meditation, I think, is listening to God. Now, the other thing that I can say about that is, when I meditate and my mind goes quiet, I don't hear a thing. I don't hear God talking to me. But when I come back out of that meditation, oh, it's neat having all these new ideas, new concepts, and new thoughts. So it appears that somebody was putting something in there while I was doing no thinking, right? And when I think it says someplace in the Bible, be still and know I'm God. And most people think that means sitting there being still. Well, if you got the mind chattering, are you really still? I think not. So meditation, I think, is a very, very important process. Reading the Word. Social connections. Being able to get out amongst a group. Hearing different things, different concepts, different ideas. And financially, you got to be able to afford all the stuff that you're going to do. You know? So you are a work in process that needs a lot of raw materials. Where are they coming from and how are you processing them? I hope you're doing a good job at it. 2 more things and then we'll quit. Once again, it's with knowledge that things happen. Most people don't recognize the fact that weight can have the effect that it can have. What's that?
Is it blurry or is it?
No, it's probably blurry.
I was getting too fast.
What's that? Oh, thank you. Okay, so we're looking at the overweight lady there. And let it be known that migraines can decrease if by losing weight, nothing more than losing weight. 57% of the people will have a decrease in migraines. Depression can go away by 55%. 55% of the people lose their depressive state. Sleep apnea, 74 to 98% recovery from sleep apnea. And that is one of the keys for mutation to happen. If we're not sleeping well, if we're waking up or if we're holding our breath or we got a machine operating for us, we're not going through those good hormonal changes that we need to go through in the sleep cycles.
So that's not hereditary, it's waititary?
Let's put it this way. I say that you should do the obvious stuff first. Okay? If you're a smoker, give it up. Don't smoke anymore. It's going to kill you in a bad way. You know, we're all going to die. There's no doubt about that. But I've watched people push that little cart around with their oxygen bottle with emphysema, and believe me, it's no fun. I've worked with people that have had stomas because of smoking. It's no fun. You know, those kind of things happen. Those are mutations that happen. If you drink too much alcohol, knock it off. It's killing the liver. alcohol has to be processed by the liver. In stage 1, it turns it into formaldehyde. Pickles it, right? And it goes to stage 2 so it can neutralize it. So if you drink a lot of alcohol, I say knock it off. You know, if you're overweight, what's the obvious thing to do? Lose some weight. You know, let go of some of that stuff. You don't need to be carrying around the 15 pounds. Type 2 diabetes, 83% resolved. Hypertension, heart disease, 52 to 92% resolved. GERD, 72 to 98% resolved. Urinary incontinence, 44 to 88%. Degenerative joint diseases, 41 to 76%. And gout, 77%. So, you know, I'm in a 12-step program. I've been there for a long time. And we have people come in and say, well, you know, I haven't been in a car accident. I'm in an alcoholic program. And they'll come in and say, I haven't been in a car accident. And us old-timers in the room will look over and say, yet. Somebody says, I haven't been in prison yet. Or I haven't been in prison like some of these other people yet. So there's yets on that sheet right there. Maybe you haven't experienced any of that stuff yet. Be careful. If you wait too long, the yets will happen. Okay, one last story. About 2 months ago, I got a call from my sister-in-law. And she says, Michael, I haven't been feeling very good. I went to the doctor. He says, I'm 20 pounds overweight. What do you suggest? And I says, well, Trixie, I suggest that you knock off all simple sugars, sodas, alcohol, and cakes, cookies, all that stuff. And she says, you're asking me to do that? I says, yep. And she says, why do I have to give up the good stuff? So the good stuff is listed over here on the left side, right? Or normally, so the good stuff is sweets and candies and cakes and cookies and white bread and pasta and alcohol. We could throw some other stuff in there, bacon, you know, all sorts of stuff. But if that's on the good side, then the stuff on the other end of the spectrum must be bad stuff, right? Make sense? Okay, so let's look on what the bad stuff is. Peace and serenity and joy because you have good health and vitality and energy. That's the bad stuff. So when we really say that, I'm depriving myself of that, what are we really depriving ourselves of? What is the truth? You're depriving yourself of the bad stuff. So it's one of those cases where do the obvious thing. You know, look in the mirror, see what yourself tells you. Because everybody here is going to do exactly what they're going to do. Everybody here makes their daily choices. You know, and nobody else is responsible for your health and well-being. Nobody else is responsible for how you feel or how you look, anything else. Only you. You can make the choices. You can try and do it. Try really hard. Or you can do it. Choice is up to you. Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions?
You showed this to me today, but this is as our Bible study. This is the Bible said it first. Some desires are never satisfied. Proverbs 13, verse 25. The righteous eats to the satisfying of his soul, but the stomach of the wicked shall be in want. always wanting.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I like how to do
So
that.
we're always gonna want.
The stomach always wants, the wicked tummy always wants.
Now, these are not all the same, so pass them around.
Oh,
No, they're all different.
oh my gosh.
Which one do I get?
It's like fortune
They-
cookies.
They do all come out of Proverbs.
Can.
So
ahead.
would it be a good idea to fast before you go this route?
Do I suggest fasting? If you're
Are they supposed to be?
part of a church group that wants to fast, fast.
Carolyn,
Don't fast to lose weight.
we didn't get any number here.
My mom's fasting and she's not gonna go to the gambling hall for 21 days.
Good for her.
She's not going where, to the gambling halls?
Yeah, for 21 days.
You went straight to the bar?
No, she actually, I got her to go to church because she watched the Billy Graham and he said she needed to go to church. And then I called her and I said, well, you need to go to church. And she goes, oh, you're the second person that told me that. And, so she went Sunday finally. I answered prayer.
What is your
Do we wanna
say,
have
Vincent?
people read
What's that?
something?
It says Proverbs 11:14.
Well, they can pass them around
Where
and
there
read
is
them if
no
they so desire,
counsel,
or I can
the
read them.
people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety.
Multitude of counselors, keeps you accountable.
So who's got another one?
Some desires are never satisfied. Proverbs 23:2. I can't say without laughing. And put a knife to your throat if you're a man given to appetite. Pass
A
out the
man,
knives.
notice it says man.
Pass out the
Yeah,
knives.
those fat men, those fat boys. Okay.
Who's got another one?
Barbara, what's yours say, Barb?
Mine says, slide edge, Proverbs 10:17. He who keeps instruction is in the way of life. And then in simple disciplines, but he who refuses correction goes astray. Slide errors in judgment.
Any more out there?
And I didn't know if I should hand them out, you want them
President
back?
Trump.
These
What?
are-
I can print some more out if somebody wants to keep. Well, may you all be blessed in life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.